Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Okay, woo! So we have not done a lot of making videos because things are getting quite busy now with the world events that are happening. Um, Even though it was not necessarily the easiest thing to predict that Russia and Ukraine would start fighting, at least starting in February. It was pretty easy to predict the events that are now unfolding as a result of it. It was just a matter of time, really. So we're going to do a live stream tonight. Not sure if my wife will join or not, but probably 7 p.m. East or 7 p.m. Pacific, I think, is the best time. We're going to start addressing some serious stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in this video as well. But all of our lives just changed, and most people have no idea, because we have never really been taught how to forecast. You don't get taught in traditional American education on how to be a contrarian thinker and how to think ahead and plan ahead in a ever-changing model, because most of the schooling system is set up in a way for really how our grandparents came up through the system. So either those who've recently passed away or maybe 75 or older at this point. And that's just not the world we live in anymore. It's rapidly changing. And obviously my biggest concern right now is not nuclear war, and I'll tell you why tonight on our live stream, but it has to do with the supply chains, because the supply chains have been continuing to break down over the last 2 years. And we all know it happened 2 years ago. That put a lot of strain on things. Reserves were used up. And in the same time this was happening, China was storing, basically China was acting like they were way low on food. Whether they were or not doesn't really matter. The world bought that narrative that they were very low on food and they needed food. So needless to say, countries like the United States, we sent a bunch of corn and wheat and soybeans and a bunch of pork, and they eat a lot of pork over in China, inexpensive meat. We sent a lot over there, not to mention they own Smithfield, so that results in a lot of pork yield as well. But we've been sending tons and tons of food over there. All the meanwhile, our last 3 years of production have continued to fall off a cliff. So 19 was already not a great year, and then 2020, with what happened, we had a lot of panic, right? And farms were shutting down, and immigrant workers weren't allowed to come in and all that stuff. And then 2021 was even worse than 2022. So we're really working a razor thin edge here with the last 3 years of subsequent farm yields, our exporting of everything. A lot of farms went out of business. A lot of farms are getting subsidized not to grow food. Not going to get in that too much right now, but yeah, pretty sketchy. But as homesteaders, we need to kind of start talking about what is the absolute most important, because a lot of people, we've been given this this very concrete sort of framework here in the United States to work with, right? We just have these systems in place, right? And we're supposed to navigate and manage our homestead or any business really through these systems and this framework that's been set up as kind of like guidelines for being successful. Well, all the systems are breaking down, and so the guidelines are starting to just throw them over your shoulder in a sense, because everything from supply chains to finance to social, every part of it is breaking, and it's going to get much worse, unfortunately, folks. So those who are doing homesteading, not because it's like cute and fuzzy and they wanted to get out of the city, and live this ideal life, and homesteading is great, a lot of work, but it's great. And it is much better, in my opinion, a way to live your life with your family. But it's now becoming important because we're going to actually be relying on these things. We're going to come to a point here very soon where if your potato yield fails, it's not, shoot, now we have to go buy potatoes at Costco, because they very well might not be there at Costco. or, you know, your tomatoes and making your sauce. So learning how to preserve and learning how to get the correct yields and being more on top of protecting your crops from failure due to weather and managing ecosystems, maybe whether that's covered ecosystems or whether that's, you know, when the exact right time to plant certain things are in your environment is, it's getting a lot more serious now, folks. And so you that have been on the homestead and have been doing that because you know the world was heading in this direction, it was just a matter of what was going to be some of the catalysts, then you're already kind of in this framework and this mindset that this is the way that we're going to protect the well-being of our family. So that's why you did homesteading in the first place. Then that is awesome. But we're going to talk through some of this stuff. So join the live stream later tonight. Ukraine is a massive breadbasket. Think of it like Iowa. Okay, so you gotta understand all the processed foods and things like that use sunflower, safflower oil, a large amount of wheat. Wheat futures are going ballistic, and oil is obviously going ballistic. The seed oils are going to go through the roof. So it's just layers and layers and layers. And this is just over there in Ukraine, and then obviously Russia. Russia exports the majority of ammonium nitrate for fertilizer around the globe. And they're going to cut everybody off, except for probably China, Pakistan, Indonesia, Vietnam, those countries, Thailand, Malaysia, they're probably all still going to get, Philippines, probably. So they have plenty of places to export, and they also need it in their own country. So for the time being, they are probably going to completely cut us off from the ammonium nitrate fertilizer capabilities. So we're already looking at farmers paying 4 to 5 times their typical load, or their typical price per load of ammonium nitrate, or we'll just say fertilizer in its finished form. And ironically, North Carolina fertilizer plant had a massive fire like 3 weeks ago. It's like one of our largest plants here in the United States that makes fertilizer. Quinky dink, I don't know, probably, right? So fertilizer costs alone will probably reach 10x of what they were in 2018. So what does that mean for your food when fertilizer costs are 25% generally of the actual planting cost of, you know, to put the food in the ground? So you've got obviously petroleum for running the equipment, you've got the seed, you've got the labor, and then you've got the fertilizer. And so a quarter of that does make up the cost of planting. Now that's going to go way up, obviously. So what impact will that have on the front-loaded costs for farmers? We've seen farmers switch from corn to soy in mass because corn takes more fertilizer. So if you had a farm, it's a 100-acre farm, and you were planting that majority corn, let's say 80% corn, 20% soy, and now you swap that out, well, you still probably won't be able to fill up the 100 acres. You're probably going to plant 50 acres. And this is very close to a real-life example. I was just listening to a farmer on a podcast, but so in this scenario, this farmer was only going to be able to plant a quarter, so 25 acres in corn if he stayed in majority corn. Instead, he's going to plant 50 acres of soy because it takes less fertilizer and less upfront cost for him, and the market price is not as good as corn, but close enough, right? He comes out better if he does it this way. So he's still not planting the 100 acres. He's taken corn away, gone into soy. And you're going to see a lot of that. And unfortunately, for most Americans, corn is a better option. I don't eat either. So, okay, I take this with a grain of salt. But as far as being a mainstay in American diet and supplying a more well-rounded nutrition, even though I hate commercial corn, I think it's garbage. For you homesteaders that grow the old heirloom corns, the blues and the reds and all that stuff, props off to you. That's good stuff. But soy's kind of garbage. Okay, soy's garbage. It just is, in my opinion. If you eat a lot of soy, I'm sorry. That's my opinion. But it's just going to be massive, and not to mention we're looking at a very possible $8 to $10 gallon. Certainly by 2020, first quarter of 2023, possibly sooner. And what you need to understand is we're in what is called a quickening. Okay, so if you feel rushed on a daily basis and you feel like time is flying by faster than normal, you're not the only one. Okay, the whole globe is kind of in this quickening moment, and that is why it's really hard to forecast exactly when things are going to happen, because realistically I could say $9 a gallon next March for gas as a national average. It may happen much sooner than that because just the events are spiraling very, very quickly, and we just don't know exactly what is going to happen next. But what we do know 100% certain is that between loss of animals such as this this new bird flu, which may or may not be natural, that's killing a bunch of poultry, between China owning a lot of our pork, between the assault that beef producers have been under over the last 2 years. If you haven't heard some of the stories about ranching, and the massive cost of hay we had last year, and I'm sure that's going to just increase again this year. So every part of the food supply chain is breaking down. I think it's something like 60% of seed oils or safflower oils and stuff come out of Ukraine. Obviously, Russia, between the two of them, it's a crazy high amount of wheat and corn that get grown over there. So there's just so many facets to this that are going to affect us in a massive way. And the biggest one is your dollar is officially on its last legs. Okay, I can't tell you how long it's going to last and how long it will be exchangeable, but you're seeing the rapid decay. This is not, well, I guess technically it's transitory inflation, because we're going to transition into a complete failure of the dollar. So if you want to claim that as transitory, fine. But no, this isn't like this is transitory, we have to put up with inflation, because the whole system is so wrapped in debt. We can't do what we did back in 1980 and use interest rates to suppress the inflation. All right, they have no more tools except to print money, and that just obviously makes the problem worse. Maybe that day when you print a bunch of money, it eases, but then next month it just makes the problem worse. So we are in the last legs of our current fiat monetary system, and these things get very complex, and I think we're going to go into more detail tonight on why I've known for 11 years that this monetary system is finished, but why it took so long and why it's happening now, and globally, what other things are at play here that are already in place and already ready to surpass and take away that world reserve currency that we have been using and abusing since the 1970s, early 1970s. So we were technically the world reserve currency for that, but I'm talking petrodollar status here. So that was 1971, 72. So now what we need to do is we need to have these conversations. Okay, so the vlogging is cool and nice and fun, but I can't spend the time to edit a bunch of videos, and I want to get information out to you guys that's tangible, usable, even if it's just news, right? So you can kind of be ahead of the curve here. And I know there's a lot of people now starting to talk about all these supply chain issues, and people are very concerned about food. And all I'll say to that is that a lot of them are right, but we're going to get into the nitty gritty, because this is really what I've studied for over a decade, and why I've driven my wife crazy about it for the last decade. So we're all certainly going to do homesteading stuff, because our snow's sort of starting to melt a little bit, so hopefully we can get out there and do some actual planting and things like that, and we will certainly post that if we're capable of doing so. But things are heating up, things are getting serious, so we also need to discuss, are you at a homestead yet? Are you looking to get onto a piece of land? What are your options? Prices are high as all heck. Certain parts of the country, we're going to fragment into crazy real estate prices in this location, crashing real estate prices in this location, unlike 2008, where it was basically a national thing. Within a few months, give or take, most of the country pulled way back and had a housing market crash, because that was a U.S. dollar system issue, right? When we all use the U.S. dollar, we all use the same financial system. So that was a banking pullback, a banking crash. Guess you'd call it a crash. It wasn't really a crash in my opinion, but this time is going to be much different because of world events and safety, security, food production. There's just a lot of different ways people are going to value land, and there is a lot of people out there, given the last decade of our economy in this country, that have cash on hand that are going to be moving to specific areas, while other areas are going to be very undesirable, and these real estate prices won't specifically match up. It could be quite a variance, even if one spot has just a fantastic house and the other spot kind of has a dump. This dump might be priced a hell of a lot higher. So we want to talk about that stuff as well. So I think I'll leave it at that for this morning video. So this is Sunday the 6th now. Yep, time's flying. So Sunday the 6th, 7 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to attempt to do a live stream. My internet is sketchy. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not. So if for some reason I can't connect, either through cellular or through our Wi-Fi, and it's not working, I'm just going to make the video and I'll post it afterwards, and I'll send my apologies in advance if that occurs. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.